Hi everyone, I'm Paul Cara and I want to thank you for watching. Actually, my name is Ken Cara, but I want to make a point. We all get starstruck. Once I met Penn State All-American linebacker Paul Posluszny, and when he introduced himself, I said, "Hi, I'm Paul." Again, I'll remind you, that's not my name, but that was that, interaction over. Chances are many of you at home have a story just like mine because we're all fans of something. There's a place in Sugarloaf where fans of all sorts gather looking for treasures. And on the day that I was there, many people had the chance to screw up their name in front of a celebrity. In 1983, Gabe Horvath was waiting in line to meet his idol, Pete Rose.
He's a three-time World Series champion, and there he is in Atlantic City. And here's a little guy like me that says, "Hey, can you just sign my card?" And he says to me, "Get back in line," right? Go 30 years later into the future. Before Pete passed away, I sat down with him at breakfast up in New York, and I said to him, "Pete, you remember me?" He goes, "No." And I said, "But you remember this story?" Thought about it for about 30 seconds and he goes, "Gabe, no."
That small kid from the Hazleton area now owns Coast Cards LLC in Sugarloaf, and he's giving a new generation the chance to meet professional athletes. The night before an autograph signing event at his store, Horvath was out with former Major Leaguer and World Series champion Charlie Hayes.
I went to dinner with Charlie last night, and by the time I left, he had 25 kids around him, and he's telling stories about how it was when he was playing baseball growing up. And then his son in Pittsburgh, telling stories about how his wife was pregnant in 1996 and she was having labor pains. I mean, that's just something, and he's winning the World Series. It's just something that the stories, you just can't make them up.
Even though it was Hayes who caught the final out for the New York Yankees in the 1996 World Series, he says at events like this one, he talks more about his son Key Bryan, who currently plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That seems more than okay with Hayes, who never really craved the spotlight anyway.
I remember people would ask me, what would I thinking when I caught the last out of the World Series, and it's really the trials and tribulations, the journey, the times when you were in the batting cages trying to figure it out, the blood in the batting gloves. Those are the things that no one sees. But as a player, when you continuously to grind to do the things that you need to do to try to get to that level, that's what you reflect on. I tell people all the time also that just think how good I had to be to get to the major leagues and suck.
I mean, you joke like that, but do you feel like that sometimes? Or do you feel like...
For me, I never was a big deal. I wanted to go and work hard, treat every day like it was my last day. I never took it for granted. I wanted to be the best one for the team, more so than the best one on the team. And I think approaching it that way is why I lasted 14 years instead of 7 years.
Joining Hayes at this signing event is Gene Snitsky. He helped Panther Valley High School in Lansford win a District 11 football championship and then went on to play at the University of Missouri, where one of his coaches was Andy Reid, and he got signed by the San Diego Chargers before getting hurt and walking into the doors at the Wild Samoan Wrestling Training Center in Allentown.
Yeah, we did a lot of local shows. We were right in Hazleton here at the American Legion building there.
No kidding.
Yeah, we had shows there all the time. It was great. It was one of my favorite places to wrestle at. It had that little balcony up top. Yeah, it wasn't a bad seat in the place. That was awesome. I missed that place actually. But that was where I actually broke in the business. Was right here in Hazleton.
With a lot of hard work, he eventually found himself in front of sold-out crowds as a star in the WWE.
I've always had a vivid imagination.
Yeah.
Like wrestling's good, always good versus evil, good guy, bad guy. So you're basically a live action movie, so to speak, where people could go and enjoy it. Like you go to the movies, you're watching it, it's a little different. So that's what's cool about wrestling. You could actually go and see the movie unfold in front of you.
He used that imagination to create a character that resonates with fans to this day who still believe that it wasn't his fault.
It's kind of crazy how it took off because I literally just said it in happenstance. And then I can remember Stephanie McMahon coming up to me and she was like, "Hey, you use that every time you get an interview. Always say it wasn't your fault." I'm like, okay. So yeah, I kind of put two and two together and figured that, you know, they got the reaction they wanted out of it. And it was just kind of happened. I was getting interviewed by JR and he was like, you know, "Hey, you know, do you feel any remorse, blah, blah, blah." I was like, well, no, it was not my fault. She was in there.
Catchphrase aside, winning the Best Horror Feature Film Award at the Philadelphia Independent Film Festival was very much Snitsky's fault. He was a co-producer, co-writer, stunt coordinator, and star in the movie 100 Acres of Hell, a feature that was partially filmed in South Tamaqua near his home.
There was always the part of me that wanted to pursue, you know, doing the acting. And the nice thing about wrestling is it's a combination of acting and athletics. So it was cool to me to be able to combine the two because I was, you know, obviously athletic and always liked, you know, storytelling and having, you know, a character per se. So it's kind of a natural fit for me to get into wrestling after football, and I always wanted to anyway. Like there's just something about the 80s slasher horror films that like generate, you know, emotion with everybody. So I wanted to do like a throwback to 80s horror basically, where you're, you know, building up the tension and, you know, you have the big climactic fight scene at the end.
Just a few weeks before this event in Sugarloaf, Snitsky was at WrestleCon in Las Vegas in front of thousands of fans, signing autographs pretty much all day. That may seem crazy to some, but for these two guys, it's a part of their life they really enjoy.
I'm one of those guys, I love my fans, I love interacting with the fans. If it wasn't for them, there'd be no Snitsky. So, you know, I appreciate that they come and spend their hard-earned money on us.
I consider myself a people's person, and I enjoy coming to these events just as much as they do, without a doubt. And you know, people ask me all the time, "You always sign autographs for everybody." Well, the way I look at it is, one day ain't nobody gonna want my autograph.
What unites us all, World Series champion, card store owner, wrestling superstar, is that deep down we're all fans of something or someone, just looking to enjoy life as much as we can. Charlie Hayes told me something really cool about his mom that just didn't fit into the story we just watched, but I still wanted to share it with you, because we're all fans of something, and we all have our doubts.
My first year, I struck out a lot, and it probably was the first time in my life when I didn't have success, and it was my first year in the minor league. So I basically quit. I got to the airport, I realized I had no money. Called my mom. She said, "Where you at?" I said, "I was at the airport." She's like, "Where you going? They release you or something?" I said, "No, I think I'm gonna quit and go back to college." And she said, "Well, where you going?" I said, "I'm gonna come home." She said, "Home?" I said, "Yeah, home, my room." She goes, "That's not your room anymore." And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, we put a day bed in there. That's where everybody kind of hang out and all that." She said, "Let me tell you something, though, while I got you on the phone. Hazes don't quit anything." And she said, "You need to get back in the taxi or however you got to the airport, go back and tell that coach you made a mistake and that you're willing to work hard and you're going to get better." And that's what I did. If it wasn't for that, she'd have let me came home, I probably would have went home.
Up next, we head to Tamaqua for a baseball story you're definitely going to love.